and welcome to Lessons Learned. We interview entrepreneurs that have had years of experience and ask them what major lessons they have learned along their way. Today, we have Barrie Ogilvie in, the CEO and founder of Packer Industries. Packer Industries was located in Caledonia, Ontario, and packaged kitty litter for private label brands such as Loblaws and A&P. However, this company started out of a need. The need was to fill production of his packaging plant for all 12 months out of the year. He was first packaging fertilizer, which only had his operations running 4 months out of the year. So, he began searching for other opportunities that were suitable for his packaging plant. And the first step was feeling out his network to see what other high volume products there were that he could take advantage of.
I just asked him, I said, Gordy, is there something else that goes in a bag that you guys buy a lot of? And A&P at the time on their Dundas Street location had a store right beside the head office. So we walked through the store and we looked at things that had volume, coffee, sugar, different things like that go in a bag, but it was a food stuff. There was liabilities to, and I wasn't food grade capable. Then we went down the pet aisle and it was big velocity in cat food and dog food, but again, a lot of technology that I didn't have, and some liabilities that I wasn't interested in. But then we looked at the kitty litter. Again, it was a raw material, goes in a bag, and he anticipated that they bought a lot of. Bank rates were at historical highs at 23 and 24%, and it was pre-recession in the early 80s. And the idea was that no matter how bad it got, if you had a cat, you weren't going to kill the cat, that you were still going to continue to buy kitty litter. And also that it was a small dollar purchase, like in the $1.80, $2 range for a 10-pound bag. So we weren't, if we did build a company, we were going to be subject to the recession like some of the other higher ticket products. So that was one of the thoughts that went into it as well.
So Barrie found a substitute material to package. Kitty litter would have his plant operating 12 months out of the year. Kitty litter itself is very low cost, so it wasn't going to be affected by the recession as other high-priced items. And retailers had several challenges that they had had for some time. Now, if Barrie could overcome those challenges, he had a real opportunity.
Lead time for his orders was 6 weeks. Emergency orders was 3 weeks. During transit, there was cars that were lost, and opportunity for damage, unloading boxcars and putting it in the warehouse. But the biggest thing was that he was carrying 6 to 8 weeks of a high velocity item just to enable him to keep in stock. So I looked at that. The other thing was damage. You could go to a store and you could just see clay pellets all over with the paper bags being opened or damaged, and so it was a messy item. So what I got from that was they bought a lot of it. It had lots of challenges. So the one thing I was thinking in terms of is if I could cut the order lead times, if I could make it so that they didn't have to carry 6 to 8 weeks of inventory in their precious warehouse space, I could eliminate damage and give them better inventory control, plus also the ability to grow the business. Because what I was learning was they never put it on sale because they couldn't control their inventory flow. The velocities were fairly constant. So if I could take something that was a high demand and give them the opportunity to promote it, would only serve to increase their sales. If I could solve all those, I really didn't have to be any cheaper.
Now that Barrie had found out the challenges that his customers were facing, he had to figure out how to ship the raw clay material from the state of Georgia all the way to Caledonia, Ontario.
The Caledonia plant was on the CN rail, and so I had to negotiate with them. The first negotiation was the standard rate from that point to point was $41 Canadian a ton. With knowing what the retail pricing and the wholesale pricing, what my costs of raw materials were, I couldn't afford that. To make the business model feasible, I needed $21 a ton, which was at that time half. After much pushing and whatnot, I finally got them to come back, and I said, to make this work, what do I need? And he said, well, if you can commit to us for 5,000 tons, which is they're 90-ton rail cars, so that's a lot of rail cars. If you commit to the first year of 5,000 tons, we'll meet your $21 price. So I signed a contract with CN Rail for 5,000 tons, not having sold 10-pound bag of kitty litter, which was the risk. But based on the criteria that I've been able to learn and the the relationships that I had built with other food companies other than Dominion, I took the risk. And the bottom line was that if I didn't buy 5,000 tons, for every unshipped ton, I had to pay them the $21 anyway. So we took that on and went back and we said, okay, when we moved the plant to Caledonia, we put in the bagging lines, we brought up our first rail car, and the next challenge was that no one had ever put clay into a poly bag before, and we realized right away why, because clay inherently is dusty, and it formed a dust barrier, or film inside the bag, which corrupted the seal, and so that was our next test. How did we solve that problem?
Barrie and the Packard team went where none of their competition had gone before. They found that the root of the problem was that plastic bags have a positive ionic charge, and clay naturally has a negative ionic charge. They combated this issue by positively charging the clay particles before they entered the bag.
Well, once you have an idea, and once you've begun the process, you have to have 100%, 110% effort. A lot of people are going to look at you and say, what the heck are you doing? Because the kitty litter industry was 40, 50 years old at that time. That Edlo Industries in the U.S. started it in the 20s. Why hadn't anybody else ever done this? That was the big question mark. Once I got onto the idea and dug and dug and dug, and as things came into place, that's the start. But the real thing is the very first truckload of kitty litter that I sold was perfect. The last truckload of kitty litter that I sold was perfect. There was no questioning as far as the weights being proper in the bag, the cases being properly identified, the pallets being correct. We would take, if there was damaged bags in loading in the truck, we would unload the truck, take the pallet out that had the damaged bag on it, and repalletize, and that we made a commitment to our customers of zero damage when it arrives. The other thing is to over-exceed. When customers would give us a challenge, never to underestimate their response. And if they wanted something, we gave it to them. And that took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort, and then it also took a lot of building the team. And that's the other thing about entrepreneurship is you can't do it yourself. You have to build a team. And in that team is a lot of good people that see your vision and support it and want to assist. We solved the problem with the poly bag. We were the first ones to do that in the world, I understand. Currently, every bag of kitty litter sold in North America is in poly bags. There's virtually zero paper bags anymore. So we changed the industry on that. An entrepreneur, there's only so many hours in a day that you need to continue to see your visions and continue to go out there and change. But the day-to-day management of the company, you have to empower people for them to do the job.
Okay. And you mentioned the very first year you brought in 5,000 tons of clay.
We actually did 7,000 tons.
7,000 tons. And when you sold the company, how many tons were going through that plant?
Just under 44,000.
And today it's around
60,000.
60,000.
And the plant's still there. And my management team, Pam, has been there 28 years now, and she's run that plant successfully from the day that we started. So I'm very pleased to say that she'll have her 30 years in. It's currently owned by the Nestle company, and yeah.
I need $1